In times like these, we need faith that's victorious, and you can walk in it. Welcome to Victorious Faith with Pastor Mark Cowart.
Hello and welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for joining us today. I am so excited again this week. Our special guest, Bishop Joshua Lwere from Uganda. Thank you for joining us again, Bishop Joshua.
Thank you. I'm also very delighted to be back. At home, I find this is my home.
This is your
second home.
And I feel the same way.
Yeah,
when I go,
yeah.
I'm always made to feel so welcome in Uganda.
Sure.
And you know, this has
You could see how our people are so excited this time.
Oh my gosh.
Excitement in the preaching, and the hearts of people are so, you could sense it in the spirit.
I could feel it.
Yeah.
When I was ministering on Sunday morning, there was such a liberty there.
Yeah.
I felt right at home, like I was right here in my own home.
Yeah.
And what I love is more than a friendship and good fellowship that we have, there's divine workings that the Lord's doing.
Amen.
And we have this saying at CFAN that everything God does is through relationships. So I always encourage people, guard the relationships that God puts together, because you know, really, we don't work alone. We can't work alone because of 1 Corinthians 12. Paul used the human body. And so what we're doing is, last week we talked about some of the very foundation teachings the Lord showed you that's bringing transformation to a nation. And we have those available for you. They're on the screen. Last week and this week's broadcast are available for purchase. And also your teaching that you did here many years ago called Thrones and Altars.
Yes.
It is a profound revelation. But yesterday we got into something that was powerful. And from my perspective, being an American, I think American ministers need to hear it. And that is, the Lord delivered you from building a ministry. And
delivering my ministry.
Yeah, your ministry.
Yeah.
Because then when it's your ministry, it's your job. You know, you've got to make it happen. And I loved what you said, Matthew chapter 16. Jesus said, He, the Lord, would build His church. And so when we say our ministry, that's got us off course already, because it's His church, His ministry. And what He asks of us is obedience. And the Lord Himself modeled that. He said, I do nothing except what my Father shows me. And so this week, you know, the revelation that we've talked about is God gave you how to disciple nations. Now, if I can go over to
because good is the enemy of best. It's not that building a ministry is bad. But the heart from which you build is that I have to do this. And the moment you bring yourself into the picture, then it's like, this is my thing, this is my thing. You see how much my, or I is in the ministry today. And that by itself disqualifies you from the higher. So when God delivers you from this, you don't settle. The human spirit it wants to settle on something that I have security, I have enough income through offerings and tithe. And so you always want to settle. When the Lord starts to tell you to obey Him and today go here, the next day, that's how Jesus was. It totally depended on the Father, and that delivered Him from, He healed last evening. So many people have turned up and the Father said, you have to go to the other cities. You can't camp there on the success of yesterday. Keep moving. We don't want that as human beings, especially when it comes to the nation, because it only takes His strategy to win a whole nation. He'll tell you to be in certain place at a certain time, because He has a relationship there He wants you to get. Or there is a strategic meeting that you have to attend. You really have to be obedient to, because the nation is too big for an individual.
And you know, Bishop, the enemy understands that concept better than the church. And you know our good friend, General Jerry Boykin, and he served our country 36 and a half years in the military. But he was one of the founding members of Delta Force, which was really counterterrorism. And so as he, progressed through the ranks of the military, he understood insurgencies,
And
counterterrorism, and how to overthrow. I learned this from him. It shocked me. He was teaching one time to a room full of pastors. He said it only takes the square root of 1% of any people to shift the entire culture. I said, I'd never heard anything like that. So at the time, I think our country had 317 million people. We're about 330, I think, now. So I went on and I got online. I'm not good at math. So I had to do some research, and I found out the square root of 1% of 317 million people was about 1,750. I may be off a little bit. 545 of those people are in Washington, D.C., if you take the president, the Congress, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. So the rest are those people that we talk about on those mountains of influence, like the mountain of business, and government, and media, and family, and all that. And all of a sudden I looked and I thought, the LGBT community is less than 3% of our population. And they are discipling our children in our educational systems, making taxpayers
systematically changing the culture. For us who are outside America, you may think the whole of America is gay.
Yeah.
Because it is targeted on every dollar that goes out. Your embassies, your what, they always demand countries to realign with the gay agenda before they can get. It sometimes shocks us.
I know that, because you being Ugandan, and the perspective and the narrative and the story you are getting is completely distorted of what America really is at the roots. But this is why what we're going to talk about now is so important, because you've been at this for many years. And when I look at you, I just look at the hand of God so powerfully on you. But the reason it is because you seek Him first. You seek the will of God, and you seek first the kingdom of God. And secondly, you're a servant like nobody I've ever seen. You're there to serve. And Jesus, again, modeled that for us. He said, I came not to be served, but to serve. And then He took it further, to give my life
as a
ransom for many. So one of the things when I was there last time, and this moved Church for All Nations when I shared, there are some things that you're doing because you don't want to take what God has done in you to the grave. You want to deposit it in all those others. So tell us about this university. You're going to be training people and replicating. Tell us about it.
When the Lord delivered me, started to deliver me from my ministry, and then starting to see the big picture, it was like a very lonely voice. My fellow ministers were looking at me and saying, what? For me, I'm building my church. Look at what I'm doing. And for me, I had this structure where you came several times. And I kept getting embarrassed that the whole of me, I had all that. And the Lord kept at it. He said, you continue where I'm telling you to go. Go where I want you to go. So through that obedience, He has taught me so much. Much of this you can't find in books. You can't find it written. When you are discipled by God, in the Bible you find so many people God discipled directly because they couldn't get a mentor in certain areas. Joseph had no person to disciple him. Moses didn't. David didn't. So you find that so many people were discipled by God Himself. Now, I realize now, for what I've learned through these many years, I have to divest it into young people who are going to take it on, because He told me one time that you're going to create a model. But I also understand that you need a team of people who have drunk from your heart. He can't teach everybody. He can't take them through the same thing. That's why He spends so much time to raise a leader so that you can now multiply yourself. This is what God said. I cannot help telling Abraham what I'm going to do, because he will command his children and his household to follow the way of the Lord, so that God will now fulfill His plans. The way God works is that after He has invested a lot in Pastor Mark Cowart, now He wants you to spend the the remaining time of your years, pouring it into young men who will also teach others. Paul, then Timothy. Timothy chooses faithful men who also teach others. Those are 4 generations. And that is the success that God looks at. Because what I've learned, it has been many years, but if we lose all that, and I just build it in myself, it will be selfish. So now it's like, as I finish my time in office as the general overseer, I now want to go into a time of just investing in young people. So we are building a university, a college, an institute, I'll call it an institute, where we're going to spend so many hours. We build character. We start with doctrine, and then character, because that is so key in our day. People don't understand the difference between the world and the church anymore, because the same values in the world and
you can't tell the difference.
No, you can't. The same values. Then after doctrine, then you have character, then you have vocational skills.
The hands.
Yes. And then you have, so we call it the 4H, the head, the heart, the hands, and the house. So it means we train the people here, but then we train character, then we train the skills so that the people can go and transform lives. But you can only transform lives if you have a desire to take responsibility over the community. That's the next H, which is house. That love God and your neighbor as yourself. We have people who don't love their neighbors in our countries because of corruption. They can steal billions which are intended to eradicate malaria, and one single person takes it all because he has not 4th H. So in our training, we want to concentrate on that. We are building a farm so that we spend hours in class, but then we spend days on the farm. I sit with them, I wake up with them every morning. They learn how they do Bible meditation. The church has lost the art of Bible meditation. Yes. So a pastor just reads the Bible to get a sermon. There are so many now online. So he goes there Saturday evening, picks the 6 points and goes, and that it's not his. He's just copying somebody else's life. And so a truth that has not cut you, a double-edged sword, is supposed to cut you first and cut the other. Yes. Double-edged. Now you're only taking somebody else's sermon and preaching. It can't be you. It will not be life. It won't change them. So we want these young people who have been transformed. Their lives have been transformed. You can throw them anywhere in the middle of nowhere and they start a new life because you've given them the skills. You've given them the character. You've given them the knowledge, which is the doctrine, and then the leadership knowledge and all that. So that is what we are now going to be building from this year. And we're going to actually see some of those pictures, because when I was there, you know what I loved about our last trip, that when we got there, we had things that we planned, and then some of that didn't work out and some other plans. Yeah. But when I look back, it was all His plan. God's plan. The Lord's plan. Yeah. And so I thought, you know what, it may be good if we look at some of the, let's show them some of the pictures today. And so we talked about this. On the arrival. Well, upon the arrival, this is the VIP lounge. And that was a blessing, which is, I'm seeing the favor of God upon you and the way that you came in to serve your country. And then you began to have influence in all of these mountains. Yeah, the Bible says Jesus came not to be served, but to serve and give His life as a ransom for many. Yes. But after that, He was so highly exalted. Why? Because He sank so low. So when you go down in service, in your hidden secret life, you are serving these people prayerfully, groaning, fasting for them, you are serving them. What happens later is you lead them, because it is servant leadership. And you know what you shared? I was just teaching on this, because the wilderness temptations, when Jesus was taken up into a high mountain and the devil showed him all the kingdoms of this world, he showed him what I believe were the 7 spheres of influence.
And the temptation was to bypass the cross.
Exactly. Take the shortcut.
Take the illegitimate way up. Yeah. And Jesus said, no. I'm the shepherd, the door. If you try to get in some other way, you're a thief and a robber. Yeah. And so he had to go before us. And let's look at here. This is just the entry to your church. Welcome to Grace Assembly. Yeah. But this building that we're going to show, this is the wisdom of God the Lord gave you, because you had that building and I've preached in it, and literally if the rain would have come hard, it'll come flying in. Yeah. And so we've got but I want to show, this is your platform, your worship team. And because I was in charge of pictures, I didn't do a very good job. But I just snapped a few photos. But this is it without the chairs. Yeah. This is the future parking garage of a 12-story structure. Yeah. And
2 floors of parking like this.
Yeah. So this is going to ultimately be parking. Yeah. And your church is in there now. So that's why the big pillars in the middle of it. Yeah. But this is what you're going to be building. Yeah. Joshua, that's incredible.
Yeah. Those are 12 floors. It will be very high. It will be, most of the buildings around will be at top of the city. Watching will be almost at the height of that mosque that you saw.
Ooh, and I want you to tell us the concept behind this, because to date you have 2 stories built, you're working on the 3rd, but those other 2 are occupied with businesses. Tell us about that.
Because the church meets only 8 hours out of the 168 hours in a week. If here in CFAN you have 2 services, they are about 2 hours each. Those are 4. So if you have, maybe 4 services, to be 8 at most, or maybe 1 on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. So that's about 8 hours in a week. But there are 168 hours in a week. So is that good stewardship when a building of billions of shillings?
Well, it says, this is a statistic old in America, the worst utilized real estate in America is the church, the church buildings. And ours is very busy, I don't know if you saw it.
Because of children.
We had children in here, we have life groups, we have all sorts of things going on.
That is different. That's why when I was sitting with our elders, I told them, God expects us to use every resource to the maximum. So we are going to have our Bible school here. We are going to use the rest of the space for business. So a whole floor here is business center.
And it's already occupied. Yeah. You took me around and introduced me.
You saw it. Yeah. You saw Indians, Muslims, Iraqis. I have Iraqis. There was one who wanted the whole floor. They're going to flock in because we are yet to finish the next one.
Well, you have one of your businessmen, the Iraqi. He wants a whole floor
to himself.
He's very successful there.
Yes. You saw the dentistry. You see, that dentistry wants a whole section. He says, I want to come in now while I still have a small, but I want to take up for the next, because I have several of them. Dentistries are over the city. So you have so many such people. And so in one center, where we call it Grace Christian Center, it will have the church will be there because it will be on the 3rd floor. There will be 4 floors of the church because it's very big. It will sit about 4,500. So, but then the other floors, we have the parking, we have the business floor, we have apartments where you see on the right. Those apartments are 4 stories.
That means I don't have to rent a hotel anymore.
No. And they're highly on demand now in the city because people pay in dollars, $1,000 for an apartment for a week or so, like that, So we'll have that. Then we'll have our Bible school. Then we'll have a children's center like you have here. So we have all these in this one building. So what if we only built for the church? We would have only those 4 floors, and the rest of the space in the air is wasted. So therefore, we spent a lot of time building the foundation because it's really, really deep. Those pillars are very deep. We can go safely to 12 floors or even 15 floors because our foundation is very, very strong.
Now,
so the front will be like that. But you can see all those floors will be occupied. as you said, this road is now.
Yeah, I want everybody on the screen to look at that road on the left, because we're calling things that be not as though they were. And we went out and we prayed over that road, and we spoke to that road and prophesied, because I think I've got a picture, and that's what the road looks like right now. You see, and we talked about our friend Chris, the jet patcher, owns jet patcher in South Africa. When he first came, he said, well, in South Africa, we have potholes. In Uganda, you have craters.
There's a crater.
And I tell you that, and when we drove way down to almost the Tanzanian border, I woke up the next day, and a brand new vehicle. My back was hurting.
What if it wasn't very new? What would it be like?
You might have had to wheel me around in there.
So that the idea is that in one building we have all these, and we've only covered half. So we're going to go to the other side.
The other side of it.
And then we'll lay the foundation, and then we'll build right up.
And I think we've got some pictures of the actual building process. I love this. Now look, it says Grace Christian Center. But what does that say right underneath there?
Discipling the nations.
I mean, it's right there in bold print. But you know what I could tell when we walked through and met the business owner? There was deep respect for you. Were some of them Muslims?
Many of them are Muslims. Many of those are Muslims. They say to Godfrey, you remember Godfrey is one of our workers, says, we have never known Christians, born-again Christians, do what you are. You are totally unique.
I love it.
Because for them, they see us building these auditoriums, and they never looked at us as knowing business. They really wonder how much we waste on. And for us, they see how much money they bring in to us. They parent, and
I think that's important. We point that out. So this, if I can say it this way, is cash flowing. This is bringing money back in. You are not borrowing on this building. You're paying.
We don't have any bank loan on this building so far. We haven't borrowed any money from the bank.
And I don't believe you're going to have to.
So what we did, I and my wife decided that we would liquidate some of our assets, and we entered into an agreement with the trustees of the church that we'll bring in the money, because for us we'll not charge any interest or such. But at the right time when the church is paying us back, as we'll just consider how much they think is worth, and taking charge of the inflation, and then pay us, rather than going to the bank and putting the land and all that kind of thing. So we thought we shouldn't do that.
Well, this is another thing, and I wanted to get this picture. This is before I was there. When did you start building this? But during COVID?
During COVID, yes. During COVID, when everything was shut down, for us, we're building.
And what blesses me is, I was just teaching recently on February 6, 2020. I was getting ready for a staff meeting, and the Lord gave me 5 words. And I've never had him speak to me like that, because there was no revelation. But it was change, upheaval, shifting, redirecting, and increase. And during COVID, we increased. And when I came to Uganda, I said, Joshua,
all this was built in COVID. You see, at that time, our house, the house, we were building a 3-story house, our family house. Then one night, the Lord tells me to give that house to the Lord. So I said, Lord, for me it's okay, but I don't see how I can tell my wife.
One little detail.
Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
So I prayed and said, Lord, you talk to her about this. So one time she's in Mombasa, in Kenya. She had gone for a mission. And then she wakes up, and then she calls me and says, the Lord is telling me something about this house. I said, which, our house? She said, yes. I think the Lord wants us to give this house as a seed to start building the church. I said, are you sure? Yes, because this, I said, you first come back and really tell me. So she comes back after a few days with a whole list of what the Lord, she thinks God told her this, then the next time. So after she had gone through these 3 months, something she's put together, what she felt the Lord telling her for 3 months. And I pulled mine out and said, he told me before that.
That's powerful.
That's why I didn't tell you. I wanted you to hear it yourself. So we agreed this was God. We called our children. We prepared them for a month or 2. So we took the title, gave it to the church. We handed it over. It's at that time that we got the buyer. who gave us more than the offers we had gotten before. We sold that land, and that's how we started this building. And then from that moment, it's like God started to
so powerful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then I have another one. And
that truck.
We're about
that
out
is
of
the
time.
truck you bought us.
Yeah.
That one. You bought it in 2011. We decided that we would use it to transport the tent which you bought, but also to use it because we must be good stewards. If we were not renting it out, it wouldn't be here because it would have now been. But because we are able to pay the driver as well and the young men who work on the tent, we have formed an account by itself. So it's a project.
And you know,
it raises income.
I need to tell the story because you were doing all these prayer convocations around, and I started hearing, I said, Joshua, you're paying all this money for these buildings, and then sometimes the people would not be very kind or considerate to you. It's expensive, thousands of dollars. So I said, now Joshua, I'm sowing this as a seed.
I remember that for America.
Our future in America. So we had a custom tent with the Ugandan colors made to go around the top. Then we bought the truck and the trailer to store it in. And then when I came and saw it, and then I learned there's a high demand for these things.
So much. Any number of tents that we have, they will be rented.
And so it's a blessing. We're already out of time again, but we're gonna pick up tomorrow where we left off. We've got some more pictures now. If you would like, I want to give you the opportunity to sow, and you'll learn more tomorrow of how we're doing some other things. This is what I love about your ministry, though, Bishop Joshua, is that it's not just giving to a need, it's sowing seed that is producing even today.
Yeah, you saw the accounts for the truck. You saw it in our report.
Yes.
When we were giving our annual report, the income of the truck.
I have a copy back here, and I said, look this is producing for the kingdom. So we're going to share more of that this week. Take advantage of the time that we've spent together. These daily broadcasts are available. If you'd like to get a hold of those, you can purchase them. The information's on the screen. And then Bishop Joshua's teaching from years ago that I consider a cornerstone message. But if you would like to give, the information's on the screen. The key thing is put in Uganda so that it goes toward that. And I'll talk more about it the rest of the week. But thanks for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow at this same time. Till then, Lord bless you richly.
Most Christians firmly agree our nation is on a dangerous trajectory. The alarm's been sounded, and God is awakening His people. Order your copy of this new teaching today at markcowart.org or call us at 1-800-590-4764.
We are more aware than ever that we all should be involved with the things that are facing our society. The Culture Impact Team exists to educate, equip, and mobilize the church to be involved with issues that affect our families, our faith, and our freedom. To learn more, you can check out cultureimpact.us.
Join us again next time on Victorious Faith with Pastor Mark Cowart.